Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Ramya from Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology, Trivandrum. I welcome you all for the Doctoral Colloquium event of InGARSS. So this is the first time in InGARSS we are organizing such an event. So this is mainly aimed at PhD students who are in their third year or final year to talk about their research, give a big perspective of their research. So usually in conferences, we have this research track and in which the students will be presenting, some portion of their research into their methodology and stuff. So this is basically to give a bigger perspective. And we also have, as part of this colloquium, some exciting talks from experts who will be guiding you on like what to do after your PhD, which is, I guess, the question in most of your minds. Okay. So I'll be like, we have like exciting talks. We'll just introduce you to the speakers. And apart from that, we have like 4 judges who would be judging your presentation. And this is kind of like a contest. So we'll be giving you like the best 2 presentation awards in the closing ceremony. So all the best to all the participants and to all those who are joining online as well. So first to start with in this doctoral colloquium, so myself and Dr. Sankita is here from, she's also chairing the session. So we both will be coordinating the whole session. So first we are going to have a talk by Professor Simit Raval from Australia. So he is going to talk on, so what's next? Some tips on progressing career after a PhD. So I'm sure like all of you are looking forward to this talk. So just giving you a brief background of Professor Simit. So he's a director of undergraduate study in mining engineering and cooperation, director of laboratory of imaging of mine environment at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. He specialized in the integration of sensing technology to drive applied innovation in mining, environmental, and civil engineering sectors. He leads a group of researchers focused on utilizing data from sensors mounted on various platforms, from satellites to UAVs, to visualize, identify, monitor operational environment. He has supervised several PhD research projects involving drone-based smart sensing, underground mobile laser scanning, image-based automated material characterization, mine rehabilitation, climate change, and asteroid mining. He has received 6 teaching awards, including UNSW's Vice Chancellor Award for Outstanding Contribution to Student Learning, International Tim Shoe Award for Innovation in Teaching and Learning. So we are all, happy to hear from you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much to the conference organizing committees and thanks to the chairs. Please let me know whenever 2 minutes are left so that I don't go over time. So I lead this laboratory, which is called LIME, Laboratory of Imaging Mining Environment. So when the organizers asked me to give an expert talk, if it was about remote sensing, would be very easy for me because, you have heard what of things that I do with satellite and drones and all kind of sensing. But they asked me to address to this group. And I was in problem really, because we talk always about technology, right? We have challenges and we have methodologies and we have results and nice graphs and maps and things like that. So that's our usual presentation. This is very different. So when this is very different, we need help, right? And when we need help, what we do? Nowadays, if we need help, what we do? Come on, we go to ChatGPT. So that's what I did. If it works, because I click, yeah. So that's what I do. I asked ChatGPT to prepare a presentation on career advice after a PhD, right? Simple. And ChatGPT has given me a title, which is pretty good, navigating the post-PhD landscape, career advice and opportunities. So there you go. And then ChatGPT has given me 16 slides. And you can see right from the introduction through to thank you, everything was covered. And in a very perfect sense. For example, know your strength, diverse career path. You know that academia is not only the options, you go to industry and all that. Networking, importance of networking and how you do it. Skill development, writing CV and cover letter through mentorship, a professional, everything was there. And now if you pick any one thing, for example, job search strategies, just Google it and you'll find heaps of YouTube videos to give you absolutely perfect things that you want to know. Then I thought, what's the point for me to fly from Sydney, which is 12 hours flight, to come to Bangalore and tell you something which you can easily get from ChatGPT, yeah? No point. So that help really didn't work. Then I thought, okay, what's next now? I can't cover this. This is a huge thing, huge area. I really can cover only one thing maybe in next 25, 30 minutes. The one thing that could be useful to you right now, that could be useful for you for next 3 days. What that one thing could be? Communication. Because when I try to look at all those 16 slides, there was one common factor. It's all about communication. And in communication, you know what to communicate. It's all going to be always about your research, whether you are communicating it with your friends or with your supervisor, or you're trying to communicate it to an industry, right? And every time your talk would be around what you're doing, what are your challenges, how it's going to change the world, isn't it? Now, how you communicate? And there are various things around it, right? So one, obviously, we all know is about writing journal papers, but then also about delivering presentations like this, and then emails, sending a text message through your WhatsApp. Everything is part of communication, isn't it? Again, I thought it's a huge area. I can't cover all of this. Not possible. So I just focus on, again, just one thing, small talk. And why I selected this, because what happens during these kind of conferences, people ask you that, hey, what's your research? Isn't it? When you are drinking your tea or when you are eating lunches, that's what people ask you. Are you ready with that answer? If not, probably this talk, think about it. And during lunchtime, you can prepare your speech if you haven't done it. So this is, again, AI generated scenario that I developed. Let's listen.
Could you tell me more about your PhD research? I'm really interested in learning.
Can we increase the volume? So the person is asking, can you please tell us about your research? Yeah, that's the one. That's the slide. Yes. Put it on it. Current slide. Second. Yeah.
Could you tell me more about your PhD?
Good. It was working pretty well when we started. So you can probably use this. Okay. What are the solutions? Nothing? Okay.
Could you tell me more about your PhD research?
So
I'm really interested in learning about the work you do.
So he's saying that, look, I'm very interested in your work. Please tell us something about your PhD. And then this is
LiDAR.
the first response from this first candidate. She says that I work on LiDAR. So we have few people who are kind of, they don't talk much, maybe because of they are shy or they don't really talk much, right? Because they are absolute researcher, they are focused on something, they can't really elaborate things. So we know those kind of people around us, right? Okay, let's listen to the other person. So it's very short, it lacks details, and then it really doesn't really engage to the person that asked that question. Let's listen to the other guy.
My research is all about making LiDAR SLAM better for robots. You know, without SLAM, robots struggle a lot. So I'm using some cutting-edge tech with onboard sensors to help them out. It's all about making robots work better in different environments. And guess what? I'm using machine learning too. This whole approach actually boosts their performance compared to the usual stuff. It's a pretty advancement in the world of robotics.
What do you think about this response? Elaborating it, saying that I'm working on robotics and it's going to change the world. And it says that, you know what, I'm using machine learning too. Does it mean anything nowadays? So that response, it really misses the information. I'm working on machine learning doesn't mean anything to anybody nowadays, yeah? He's doing something on robots, but so what? A lot of people are doing a lot of things on robots, so what? There is a limited insight into it. So if that person who is asking it is in the same area, even after that, the conversation will not progress where it should progress. Let's look at the third response now.
My research aims to enhance LiDAR SLAM in underground. I've introduced a novel linear equation as a disturbance model to detect and quantify the degeneration caused by insufficient line and plane feature data. Additionally, I employ machine learning techniques with LSTM and time-distributed layers to identify temporal changes in LiDAR point clouds. This comprehensive approach compensates for LiDAR rotation, state degeneration by aligning IMU poses with plane features and improves translational degeneration compensation by combining the adjusted rotational state with IMU translation data.
What do you think? Is it a good response? No. If you are not working in underground SLAM, you don't know what the guy is talking, right? If you don't know, if you're not working about extensively in machine learning, deep learning, you don't know what those algorithms mean. You probably don't know what SLAM is itself because you're not working in that area. So if that person who is asking is not particularly working in that area, this conversation means nothing. Let's look at the final response. So this was, again, too technically complex. The person assumes that this guy is also working in the same area, which may not be, and he has used a lot of jargons we should avoid. Let's look at the final response now.
Well, my research is all about tackling the challenges of LiDAR scanning in underground tunnels. You see, it's a tricky environment down there with no GPS signals, making life difficult for robots trying to navigate and map the area. What I've done is come up with an innovative solution. I've added some smart new features into the scan environment to work with LiDAR data. This combination helps identify and resolve issues caused by those tough underground conditions, and it actually outperforms the traditional SLAM, simultaneous localization and mapping methods we've been using.
So it's the same research. 4 different people have talked very differently. This was very clear. She actually explained that why it is difficult in underground because you don't have a GPS, which anybody can understand. And she said that, what is her approach? She said that I'm using some smart things to change the scan environment. Now everybody can understand that. And then she has avoided all the unnecessary details, and she also didn't use any jargons. And she also actually explained, when she used SLAM, she explained what it means to the person who is not in that particular area. So I think you got only probably 1 minute to get your response ready. If you're not prepared, You might be number 1, 2, 3, and you miss the opportunity. You need to be number 4. So this is something I thought might be useful to you. You can try just now and get benefit over the next 2 to 3 days, because networking is the key. Then I thought, okay, what can I bring in this presentation that ChatGPT cannot bring? And then I thought, okay, it's really all about my own students. So then I started building a story around these 4 recent PhD students that I have had. And of course, before doing this, I actually wanted to get consent from them. So I sent an email to all these 4, and I said, hey, I want to use your story for this talk in Bangalore. And they all said, yes, go for it. So that's how it's all evolved. Now, as I think, again, it's not about my research, but it's all about what I'm doing is around remote sensing, obviously. I use all kind of sensors, and then I apply it into environmental and safety related monitoring, and there are various sectors in that. Basically, it's all around AI towards industrial automation and smart sensing using that. Now, with this, the first, Sureka, she's graduating next year. She's almost writing her final chapters now. Then Sarvesh is the next one, graduated last year. Then Jessica is the third one. She graduated a year before in 2021. And then the fourth one is Bikram, graduated in 2018. So I'll just give you a scenario of these 4 PhD students ChatGPT can't get, and then we'll tell you the story around it. So I'll start reverse. So Sureka, as I said, she's writing her final chapters now. She's a graduate in the Earth Resource Engineering from University of Moratuwa in Sri Lanka. Now, she actually is very passionate about, of course, Earth Resource Engineering, which is mining. I'm basically a mining engineer. So it was pretty natural for her because she was really interested in remote sensing, to use remote sensing for mining related applications. So she actually started searching, and she joined during COVID time. She is currently a lecturer position in her university, and she joined as on a study leave. Now, just about a very brief overview of her research. So she's using all, in a mining situation, what you have is you have a typical mining dumps. They're all different type of materials. And if you identify those materials automatically, you can build a stable dump, because there will be a different types of material, fine material, coarse material, and then you want to build a dump that's going to stay there. So obviously, it's a mining dump, so her mining background really helped in that sense. And because she wanted to really come into remote sensing, we tried to use a lot of data, both from the UAV LiDAR, multispectral UAV, and also terrestrial images. And then she entered into a lot of, again, as I said, she didn't have any background of programming when she started. Now she's writing a absolutely fine algorithms around all these feature extractions and things like that you already know. And then what the final product is around developing that automated algorithm to characterize the material. This was part of one of the industry project that we had. So the industry project is finishing this year, and she's finishing her PhD early next year. Now, she had a real passion to visit JPL, NASA, and that actually came true early this year when she participated in one of the conferences there. Not only that, so from NASA to this is a real mine site where she goes and collects samples from climbing all those dumps in a very remote sites, very extreme northern part of Australia. She does all these things. When I asked to give some advice or what do you want to share with this group, what she said, I want to stay in academia, because for her it was a pretty clear, because she was a lecturer already before she started PhD, and she wants to stick to academia. So it was a very clear goal for her. And then the rationale behind it is because she really wants to give back to the society, because we know in in India, in a lot of other countries, we get all the free educations. Not anymore, I think in India to that extent that it used to be. But then again, the idea of giving it back to the society and the country. So that's actually drives her to go back to her country. Because she had a clear goal to become academic after PhD, I got her involved in some of the teaching activities. So starting with marking and then also kind of giving tutorials, and also I assigned some of the topic that she is really good at to give lectures. So this actually really helped her kind of, the way student reacts in Sri Lanka would be very different than the way students react in Australia. So she's really good at diverse environment, and of course she would listen to my lecture, and then she'll prepare herself, and then try compare and contrast and things like that. So it really helped a lot. That's what she said. This is quite an interesting. It's not, because when we start PhD, a lot of students are really want to just get that doctor title, but it's not just about that. It's all about rediscovering yourself and you becoming a better version of yourself at the end of the PhD. So that's really counts. It's not the number of papers. Of course, it's really important, but there's other stuff that's going on. And she's also part of this diversity, equity, accessibility, inclusion, and belonging committee of GRSS. And when she want to go back to Sri Lanka, she want to really do a lot in this area through GRSS. So that's about her. No more complications, I guess. Let's look at the Sarvesh. As I said, he graduated last year. He had a very different background. So BTech from electrical, and then he did his master's by research from IIT Kanpur on a LiDAR point cloud. He currently works as a mine surveyor in an industry. So after PhD, he joined industry. Now, just very quickly about his research. So it's all about part of the 4 conversations that you have heard on an elevator speech is from his PhD. So it's all about underground mobile LiDAR. So he has developed some kind of QR code, and then also he worked on a couple of things to automatically characterize the point cloud on a structural mapping and things like that. Develop few other algorithms to identify some of the features that is in point cloud, for example, roof bolts and things like that. Again, the research, what I wanted to point out in this is he was funded by an industry project. So industry project really had only requirement of this topic 2 and topic 3. So while doing his research, he actually went beyond that. There was no need for doing this topic 4, but he kind of just got beyond that because he was really interested in that. And then he actually pushed the project beyond what we committed to deliver back to the industry. So one of the paper he wrote is the highly cited paper. He published 6 Q1 papers, and he received our Dean's Award for Outstanding PhD. So that's what happens, because you don't restrict yourself to the objectives that is being given to you. You definitely achieve that, but then there's to go beyond it, and that's what he demonstrated actually. So not only that, he asked me to share this. That's fine. So when he started, he was a very introvert person, closed in his room all the time, just looking at the computer, going back home, things like that. So after a year, I said, like, look, you need to get out of this and go out and do something else. And then he actually found his passion for running. He started running. He will run 2-3 days in a week, and when he runs pretty seriously. So whatever he does pretty seriously. And then he started mountain run. It's a crazy thing to do. And then he has done a lot nowadays. When he comes to India to visit his family, half of the time he spends with his family and half in Himalaya doing all this mountain running. So mountain trail. So I think, again, what Sarvesh said is he joined industry because again, he was working on an industry project. He saw the gap between academia and industry. And then he saw an opportunity that ultimately he wants to come back to academia. But before that, he wants to go to industry and then see what are the challenges that industry has while being in the industry rather than being in academia. So that's what he's doing at the moment. And then what he says that what actually, how PhD helped him in terms of, because it's really a practicing of the reading and writing and getting a lot of critiques really from, most of the time it's from me, but also from when they submit the papers and things. So it makes you really resilient to a lot of stuff, and it's a life skill that you learn. And then that's going to help even if you go ahead and make your career in industry, those life skills is going to be useful. So as I said again repeatedly, PhD is not about just the topic that you are targeting, it's much more than that. Then Jessica. So Jess actually came with a lot of experience. So she, before coming to PhD, she had a BSc in geology, MSc in geochemistry, and also environmental management. So you can see a diverse range of background that she had. And she also worked before starting a PhD. A mature age student with a family. Now she is working as a policy advisor in the New Zealand Space Agency. And I'll tell you how this actually came along. So Jess, when you know a lot of stuff, then you don't find that knowledge gap. So it's during, probably you might have faced this in your initial year of PhD. What's that knowledge gap? Because you think like everything is done, right? And then she actually came up with the idea about, because at UNSW we have a 13, 14 PhD students working on off-Earth mining. It's all mining on Mars and Moon and all kind of asteroid mining. So she wanted to, given her whole background of geology and environmental management and space policy, she wanted to do something around the environmental management space policy for the space of activities. So we have published a number of papers on these areas, and which is a very different, I guess, the angle, not just industry academia, but working for government in a policy. So what actually drives her to be there? So what she said that my project was all about the planetary science, mining engineering, environmental management, international policy. Now, if you put all things together, probably you are more suitable for a government role. And that's what you wanted to apply that science and tackle real world policy problems. So that's what, when she actually saw an advertisement in New Zealand, she's originally from New Zealand. She wanted to go back to New Zealand, and that's how she actually joined the space agency. Again, the same thing, what she says, a lot of things what you learn as a part of your PhD is really transferable to, doesn't matter whatever you are doing, in terms of what you'll be doing is you'll be collecting a lot of evidence. Doesn't matter what that evidence is, whether it's a bunch of images or a bunch of policy documents. There's no difference. The process is the same. So you are collecting all those evidence, and then you are analyzing it, critiquing it, and then making all your helping come out with some outcome that can inform the decisions. So again, understand, synthesize, and clearly communicate, because often in policy space, you are communicating with the regulators. They don't really are that much into technology, but you need to put the technology in a way that they can actually make the decisions. And this is final. So Bikram came with, again, electronics background, and then he did MTech in remote sensing from the Indian Institute of Remote Sensing here in Dehradun, and then he joined PhD. Now, Bikram was my first PhD student, because I started in 2011, 2012, and by the time I got my first grant, it was 2 years. So it was the first PhD student I had. So 10 years ago. Now he's a lecturer in one of the universities in Australia. It's called University of Southern Queensland, and he teaches remote sensing and geospatial. So again, you can see the difference, what he has done. So I'll just quickly tell you, back then, 10 years ago, UAV was a kind of a new thing. So what we did, we bought a snapshot type hyperspectral camera. So you can just put it on a drone, and then we also put a LiDAR on drone. The idea was to fly on one of the mining environment, which is a highly heterogeneous ecosystem. It's very different than working in agriculture or forestry, because here the vegetation are like this. So it's almost grass type vegetation. So we got a pixel which is 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter with 13 channels or 13 bands in it. So you can see with the hyperspectral at that resolution, you can really pick up something like this. So there is no canopy or whatever in a typical remote sensing definition here, but still you can pick up those things, and you can also pick up trees from the LiDAR point cloud. Yep, just finishing. So based on, again, I think because of his electronics background, he could do some of the pretty cool things. For example, whenever, because we know in remote sensing, we would like to capture the images when we are absolutely looking down, right? So that's why what he has done, he has developed a very smart triggering mechanism. So with his electronics robotics background, he did, so whenever there is an absolute 90 degree, then only your camera triggers and takes the measurement. So all kind of skills are actually important, and you can use those skills that you have in whatever research that you are doing. One thing, when he started, is on a science. So he was not working for an industry project, so it was a very kind of an open space for him, and he embraced it quite nicely. So it's not like I just wanted to focus on hyperspectral. No, he actually tried and used the LiDAR as well, and then he came up with a fusion of LiDAR and hyperspectral. So it's not that you don't restrict yourself that I want to be really world expert in this area. The world expert is, and you have listened to the keynote address. So it's all interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary problems that we are facing right nowadays. You need to have more than one skill to do that. Just a few weeks ago, we were together in China, and he, over the 10 years, he became kind of almost like a family member now. What he says is that, again, the same thing, it's your very transformative experience, but only if you are happy to be flexible and get ready to change. Again, linking back to the keynote address, what Professor Harini said, stepping out of your comfort zone, right? And that's what all this means. Final things, I'll skip this part because of the time challenge. I don't want to scare you, but my title, so who is next after PhD, can quickly become, so what? I mean, you've done your PhD, right? So what? And then the person will say, who is next? Come on. Why? Because I'll tell you, as an academic, postdocs are very expensive. The kind of money I need to pay to my postdocs, I can get 3 PhD students. So until some postdoc proves me that I'm good enough or equivalent to 3 PhD students, they're not going to get that job. So unfortunately, this is reality check. Again, I don't want to scare you, but there is a competitive market out there, and you need to prove your worth. With that, thank you.
How do I manage the IIT committee which sits in front of me and judges my PhD work and says, no, you do not have anything good and nothing is concrete. And secondly, we are constantly over that in academic ideas to say that we should discuss it out and talk it out and think how do we manage that we talk it out but it doesn't explode at the same time.
Those are 2 excellent questions, really. So I'll take care of the first one first. So when I provided feedback to my students, So there were more red text than the black text. So it's not unusual to get criticism, and that's part of, and this is how we all learn flexibility and adaptability. If there was no criticism, we will not really, we can become arrogant. I don't want to go too philosophical, but handling criticism is a life skill. Doesn't matter where it's coming from, your supervisor or your parents. We need to learn that. So that's the life skill. You can't escape that. The second one is pretty tricky because there it's a lot of idea stealing can happen in academia, but ultimately what prevails is that if you know something and you share it with other person, that person is going to take some time to master where you are at. By the time you will move on, right? It's not that I'm going to share this and I'm going to hold this and I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life. It's not like that. What I believe, I share everything. So for example, I believe in sharing everything. When I discuss again the same chat GPT with my 4 students, that look, for this presentation, I asked chat GPT and it has given me 16 perfect slides. So almost all of them said, this is good, you're done. And I said, no, I'm not done. Now I'm in trouble that I don't want to repeat the same thing. And I'm going to tell this to my crowd. See the transparency that is happening here. I could have just stolen those things and presented. But be open, be honest. You will be always learning and nobody can catch you up. So that's the key, I think. Don't afraid of sharing. Of course, you don't want to share your codes, but yeah, rest of things you can.
Actually, a beginning of first of all, very nice presentation. Communication is the key. I totally agree. But many times researchers in like research development, people do very good work, but they are not very good communicators. So any suggestion for them and how to go about it?
Communication is and that's why I picked up. It's a tricky one. It's not going to change overnight because it's a due process. It takes years and years, right? And also, especially if English is not our first language, but the rest of the world is talking in English. English is my probably 4th language. So that becomes pretty tricky. And I guess the only, it's a due process. What is really, I will say that confidence is the main thing. I've seen so many researchers from even European countries and China. Their probably English level is much, or communication skill is much less than what we have in India. But still, they are regarded as the top researcher. Because again, communication is just way of communicating your ideas. You need to find the ways to communicate it. And then I think there is something that it's a due process. There is no shortcut, unfortunately. That's how I think it should go on. Thank you.